All right, good morning, everyone. My clock shows 11 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning in this webinar about the Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A grant. It looks like a lot of you are going ahead and answering the polls that should have popped up on your screen. So I'll give this a few more moments. This webinar should only last until 11:30, and the recording and the slides will be posted on our website as early as next week. All participants will join automatically with their cameras off on mute, but please go ahead and use the Q&A box to ask any questions. We'll have some time at the end to answer these. All right, so go ahead and end the poll. Thank you for participating. So as you can see, we have a lot of representatives from cities, counties, other, and a few of you are interested in planning and demonstration grants, some in implementation grants, and most would like to learn more. So thank you. Thank you for being here today. All right. Okay, so my name is Max Wilcox. I work as a transportation safety planner at the Kansas Department of Transportation, or KDOT, and Haley Doherty, our planning and engineering section manager, will be monitoring the Q&A. All right, so today we will talk about SS4A, the match program updates, timelines, and questions. I just want to remind you that while this will touch on a lot about the USDOT SS4A program, this won't act as a replacement for reading the NOFO or the Notice of Funding Opportunity. So I highly encourage you to do that. All right. We start every meeting or webinar at KDOT with a safety moment. As you know, there's been a lot of focus on vulnerable road users, pedestrians, cyclists. This safety moment is about safer speeds. You can see the impact of speed on pedestrians in case of a collision with a motor vehicle. As the motorist increases their speed, their field of vision narrows, which makes it more difficult to yield to pedestrians. You can see that 75% of drivers yield when traveling 20 miles per hour, but only 17% yield when driving 37 miles per hour. So not only is a driver more likely to hit a pedestrian at higher speeds, but the pedestrian's likelihood of survival also decreases because of the kinetic energy transfer. So at 20 miles per hour, the pedestrian's likelihood of survival is 9 out of 10, and only 20 miles higher, 40 miles per hour, the pedestrian's likelihood of survivability decreases to 1 out of 10. So we see that the effect of speed is drastic. And the main goal of today's webinar is to demonstrate how partners at the local, state, and federal levels can work together to use these SS4A discretionary grants to prevent death and serious injury on our public roadways. We can see that in Kansas, reducing death and serious injury remains a priority. Well, the number of roadway fatalities has decreased since 2020. The number of serious injuries has increased. So you are in the right place if you want to improve roadway safety in your communities for SS4A activities. All right, so what is Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A? It's a discretionary grant program funded by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. We are in year 3 out of 5. It's a 5-year, $5 billion program that started 2 years ago. And now the notice of funding opportunity is open. It opened in February. And again, this funds regional, local, and tribal initiatives through grants to prevent roadway deaths and serious injuries. So who can apply? Political subdivisions founded under state law can. So this can include metropolitan planning organizations or MPOs, cities, counties, townships, federally recognized tribal governments, and multi-jurisdictional groups comprised of the above. All right. As you can see, applicants in Kansas have already had a lot of success with SS4A. As shown in purple, in 2022, US DOT in their first year awarded 12 applicants in Kansas planning and demonstration grants, almost $5 million, covering areas where approximately 20% of Kansas's population lives. In green and blue, the US DOT awarded 25 planning and demonstration grants and 1 implementation grant to Kansas recipients last year. So to date, this means that almost $15 million has been awarded from the US DOT to Kansas recipients and almost $3 million from KDOT to improve safety on local roads. And now over 80% of Kansas's population lives in areas that will be covered by these comprehensive safety action plans. Something that the US DOT highlighted in their webinar is the importance of partnerships. So if your area is already covered by someone who has applied for and received one of these grants, I would highly recommend that you reach out and see if you could do a collaborative effort with them. For example, in 2022, the city of Lawrence received a planning grant in collaboration with Eudora, Baldwin City, and the Lawrence Douglas County MPO. And then in 2023, the city of Lawrence applied to and received a demonstration and supplemental planning activity grant to do a specific feasibility study for quick build improvements on a corridor. So you can see how these efforts play off and build off of each other. All right. So there are 2 types of grants. On the left, you can see information about the planning and demonstration grants, which were known in their first year as safety action plans. You can see that there are more funds nationally available for planning and demonstration grants. And this is because in the past, 40% of this funding was subscribed towards planning and demonstration. However, they were undersubscribed in the last 2 years. So they were able to roll some of these appropriated funds over into this year. Next week, US DOT said in their webinar yesterday that there would be an amendment coming out going from planning and demonstration grants being subscribed 40% down to 30%, meaning that there will be more funding available for implementation grants this year. And these are for two different types of activities. For planning and demonstration grants, you can develop an entirely new safety action plan. You can conduct these supplemental safety planning or demonstration activities to enhance these plans. And for the first time ever, you can see with this gold star that there are 3 different deadlines for these planning grants. Thursday, April 4th, May 16th, and August 29th at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you are not selected in these first 2 rounds, you can reapply by the 3rd deadline. On the other hand, once you have these safety action plans, you know, we hope that you're able to implement these strategies. And this year, there is only 1 deadline for implementation grants, which is May 16th. However, for the first time ever, USDOT is offering a pre-application submission to determine if you would be eligible for an implementation grant. So if you would like to confirm that, you can apply or submit that by April 17th. You might be wondering, is my local road safety plan or LRSP eligible as a safety action plan? As you can see from the graphic on the right, most counties in Kansas that qualify are covered by a local road safety plan. But there are several criteria that these plans must reach or meet. First and foremost is that they must have been finalized and or last updated between 2019 and April 30th of this year. So I highly encourage you to go ahead and check the self-certification eligibility worksheet to make this determination and apply for that pre-application review. You may be able to apply for supplemental planning activities to bring these plans up to speed, to get that equity component, to get that public involvement component. A great example of an implementation grant that was awarded in Kansas was to the city of Independence, Kansas last year. A few years ago, the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, chose the city of Independence as one of 3 locations in the U.S. to receive direct federal assistance in creating an LRSP, which identified low-cost, high-impact countermeasures to reduce injury crashes. So they used this plan to submit for an implementation grant last year. And were awarded over $1.2 million for low-cost, systemic, proven safety countermeasures, such as edge and object marker delineation, traffic calming devices, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and collecting pedestrian count and exposure data. Okay. And so this sounds great. Where does the funding come from? With most federal discretionary grants, there's also a local match component, in which a portion of the total project cost must not be paid for with federal funds. And in this case, SS4A requires 20% of the total funding to come from non-federal sources. New this year is that federally recognized tribal governments can use tribal transportation funds for the non-federal match. So there's this 80-20 split. This is where the Kansas Build Fund comes in. This is state funding for that local match component. So for the past 2 years, the Kansas Department of Transportation has supported local public agencies in applying for SS4A through the Match Pilot Program. And this year, the match is still available. However, the process has been streamlined and updated, so you can apply for match funding for any bill program, including SS4A, through the Build Kansas Fund. A little bit of background on the Build Kansas Fund. It is $200 million in state matching funds for any bill discretionary grant. So this means that unlike in past years, there are no requirements for the extra match funding. For example, we had it set up so that any local public agency could receive 10% of the total funding amount automatically, and then have extra incentives if they had met rural criteria, such as a rural county or city or joint applications. But this year, this means that you can apply for the full match amount. It's important to note that this process will not be involved at all in selecting projects, and projects will only receive funding from the Build Kansas Fund if awarded by USDOT. All right, so where do you find this application? Where can you apply? You should go ahead, check out kshub.org and click on the Submit Your Application Today to learn more. Also, the Hub offers technical assistance to take advantage of. So this includes assistance from the Hub Capacity Extension team. They can help you with grant writing and compliance through one-on-one diagnostic support to make your application better. So reach out if you have any questions about this SS4 application or the Build Kansas Fund. So you can see here that you will be submitting 2 applications. Already you have steps 1 and 2 done. You have identified the federal bill program that you're interested in, SS4A, and you've confirmed the match requirement. So next, for the federal application for SS4A, make sure that you obtain a unique identifier through sam.gov. And although SS4A is posted on grants.gov, you need to apply through valid eval, not grants.gov. Next, for your Build Kansas Fund application, steps 3 through 10. You will begin and submit your Build Kansas Fund online. Wait to receive approval of this pre-apportionment. Once you receive approval, that the Build Kansas Fund would cover you if selected, submit your SS4A application at valid eval. You would await SS4A program award notification. And then if you receive that, let the Kansas Infrastructure Hub know. And then accessing these funds are through a reimbursement process. 85% of the information that you need for the Build Kansas Fund application will also be relevant and applicable for the SS4A federal application. So these really go together hand in hand to help you make the best application possible. All right, what will KDOT's level of involvement be? First off, you can request a letter of support from KDOT. This is not required, but it is recommended. Priority review and response for packets are those that are received at least 14 business days prior to the grant deadline. So for this, you will need to include a draft project narrative, map, and budget. So the link is in the chat. Don't hesitate to submit any questions to bill@ks.gov. We have also provided some crash information that you will find helpful in submitting your SS4A application. This is the average annual fatality rate per capita or per population from fatal serious injury crashes from 2017 to 2021, which is the most recent data that is federally available right now. So on our website, you can find county fatality rates, city fatality rates, and if you have any questions, feel free to email KDOT #SS4A@ks.gov. All right, so the timeline for this year. Text in orange are not hard deadlines. So if you want to go ahead and apply for this first planning and demonstration grant deadline, go ahead and submit a letter of support request to KDOT as soon as possible, but no less than 72 hours before the first grant deadline. And this second box in white, this details the second deadline for planning and demonstration grants, as well as the only deadline for the implementation grant. If you would like to have that pre-application review for the implementation grant, go ahead and submit that to USDOT by April 17th, and make sure that you get that letter of support request to KDOT by or before April 26th. For the third deadline for planning and demonstration grants, August 29th, 14 business days before is August 9th. All right. We have a few minutes remaining for questions. Doesn't look like we have any questions so far. Okay, so recommended next steps. If you haven't already, go ahead and read the SS4A NOFO, and the link was put in the chat already. Go ahead and watch USDOT's and the Build Kansas webinars. That will be posted online. And it looks like we do have a question or a raised hand. Participants don't have the ability to talk, but if you wouldn't mind would bike lanes be considered? Yes, this is multimodal. So for planning and demonstration grants, I would recommend addressing all modes of transportation, including cycling. For implementation grants, these projects really have to be projects that address safety concerns. So if you're seeing a high number of cyclist crashes in your community, then maybe bike lanes would be some kind of a good type of project. Thanks for that question. All right. Will this fund the expense of a new employee to develop our action plan? There are many more details on the USDOT website. However, for the local match, this can also be an in-kind match, so that could be part of the fulfillment on the local end of this funding is not cash, but employee time, things like that. Are there examples of successful SS4A submittals? There are so many, both on the USDOT website and on KDOT's website. Every project that has received funding has been listed. But if you have any more questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out. Examples of demonstration projects. This can be a pilot or quick build. This can be to just test quickly if something in your community will work. It would need to be taken down again. It could also be some kind of educational initiative to see if a campaign would work with a certain type of community. All right, on the timeline. Yes, recipients would know if they have the match prior to submitting the application to USDOT. So if USDOT does award the recipient, then they would be they would have that apportionment from the Kansas Match Fund. But if they are not awarded by USDOT, they would not be reimbursed by the Kansas Match Fund. Average award sizes, planning and demonstration grants can be from a recommended $100,000 to $10 million. More of this information is online at USDOT. Implementation grants are much more. It just depends on the size of the municipality, the roadway miles, the number of projects. It's really dependent on what the applicant is looking for. Final question is, will SS4A help with construction costs to rebuild a road? These really need to address safety concerns. So rebuilding a road, I think probably not. And there's more information again at the USDOT's website. So thank you very much for joining our webinar today. We will be sure to post these slides at KDOT's website by next week. And please don't hesitate to reach out to any of these emails if you have additional questions. Thank you so much.